Hi everyone! In this video I will discuss about frequencies. Let's start with the meaning of frequency. So frequency means how many times a data value is found in a dataset. So how many times does a data value occur in a dataset? The answer will be the frequency of that data value. And why do we need frequency? Why is it useful? Here I created a dataset that shows height of 50 people. If you just look at this data, can you conclude many information about this data set? It is difficult to interpret the data by looking at this table. When researchers conduct a research study, they collect data, organize data, and analyze data. So after we collect data, for organizing data, we use frequency tables. So those are useful for organizing data. And they also show us the variation of the dataset. Let's talk about this in the frequency table of this height dataset that I just showed you. See, when I look at this table, I can interpret the data easier. For instance, there are 5 people whose height is 160 centimeters. Or there are 4 people with height 185. By looking at this table, I can answer this question. What is the sample size? If I add all these frequencies, I will find 50, which is the sample size. What about this question? What can you tell about the variation of the data? So by looking at this table, I know that the height of the people in the sample ranges from 140 to 210. And the data is clustered around 170. See, there are 8 people with height 170 and more around 170. So we can make some interpretations about the variation of the data by just looking at the frequency table. There are other terms covered in chapter 2, which is relative frequency and cumulative relative frequency. Relative frequency is simply the ratio of frequency to the sample size. For instance, let's look at the number of people with height 170. So it was 8. So if I divide 8 by 50, which is the sample size, I get relative frequency for 170. I can also write it as a decimal, and in this case I can also find the percentage. Like now I know 16% of the people in this sample have height 170 centimeters. Cumulative relative frequency is the sum of relative frequencies. For instance, 140 has its own relative frequency, but for 145 I add the relative frequency of 140 and 145. 0.04 plus 0.02 gives us 0.06. So we keep adding the relative frequencies to find cumulative relative frequency. And again, why is this useful? For instance, by looking at this last row, I can tell that 80% of the people in the sample have height 180 or less. So I can make interpretations like this using cumulative relative frequency. Okay. Let's do an example. A salesperson records the number of products she sells every day for a month. So take the month for 30 days. The following table shows her data. So I ask you 3 questions. The first one says complete the table. So some cells are empty. Please try to answer these questions. You can stop the video now and answer the questions because I will answer I will share the solution in a second. Oh, before sharing the solution, um, if this table doesn't make sense to you, you can try writing the data values explicitly. For instance, these numbers mean there are 3 days that there was no sale. So this salesperson recorded 000, so recorded 0 3 times, and then 1 because there were 2 days where only one product was sold. So you can keep going like that. So there were 3 days where 6 products were sold. So writing the data explicitly may help you understand these frequency tables. Okay, let me share the answers now. So complete the table. So this was missing. So we know the sample size is 30 because the data was collected for 30 days. So I added all these numbers and found 24. 30 minus 24 is 6. So this missing value was 6. In order to calculate relative frequencies, we divide the frequency by sample size. For instance, for this number, I divided 2 by 30. For this number, for 20%, I divided 6 by 30. And to calculate cumulative relative frequencies, I keep adding the relative frequencies. So for instance, to find this number, I added 0.1667 with 0.20, and I got this number. And there was a question, what does 2 in the second column mean? So this means there are 2 days that only one product was sold. And this number, remember, this is in the cumulative relative frequency column. So it means the percentage of the days where there was no sale or only one sale is about 17%. So I rounded this number to 17. So about 17% of the days there were either no sale or there was only one sale. So please make sure you understand this table and you can interpret each number in this table. To prepare these slides, I use our textbook as a reference. I hope this was helpful. Have a nice day.